Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I should have listened to my lawyer and not watched this DVD. He didn't help at all. It only affected me, and I was destroyed. It was all over a few weeks ago. I could just leave it in the safe and not look at it. My anger would have remained the same. The feeling of betrayal would have remained, but my soul would have been intact. But I couldn't leave it alone. It was like an itch that I had to scratch. A year before that, I noticed a slight change in my wife. She began to dress better, spend more money on clothes that I did not consider possible, and later began to stay on the street with those whom she called girls. I don't know how 5 middle-aged women can consider themselves girls, but it doesn't matter. The most important sign was that she was happy. My wife was an egocentric harridan, an unpleasant woman, especially an elderly one, who often gets angry and often tells other people what to do, and happiness was not on her list of useful qualities. Until then. She became even colder towards me and the children. It wasn't as terrible as it could have been. We are used to our house being a place where she comes to sleep, and our family is a verbal punching bag. Now she wasn't even pretending to care. She didn't call to say she was going to be late, and she didn't cook for the children. After I received a printed Amazon gift card for my birthday, left on the dining table, and it didn't arrive until 11 o'clock that evening, I decided that was enough. When the children told her about our trip to Buca di Beppo for the celebration and asked why she didn't come, she hurried to put them to bed. Her face was red. Couldn't you wait? You just couldn't wait for the weekend? Now I'm bad. It's just damn wonderful. Dad is an injured hero. Again. I sat with the Shinerbach in my hand and looked at her. You must be joking. We didn't leave the house until 7. We've been waiting for you for an hour and a half. Have you even checked your messages? Your daughter called you 3 times. You know what? Go to hell. Why did you come home at all? Next time, just stay there. I got to my feet slightly drunk after red wine at dinner and 3 bottles of beer in a row after we got home. I went up the stairs to the bed, stripped down to my underwear and crawled under the covers. She came in 15 minutes later. I don't know if she felt guilty or if it was an attempt to make a birthday present. I couldn't remember the last time I yelled at her, and I think she decided reconciliation was what was needed. I know we've been a little distant lately, honey, but we can work this out. You know I love you. We haven't had a bed in over 5 weeks, and we haven't made love in years. I would have liked to roll over and ignore her, but I wasn't that strong. When she kissed me, I kissed her back. My lips got to her collarbones when I smelled this scent. Eros from Versace. The scent was faint, maybe a few hours ago, but it was there. I use Abercrombie & Fitch's Fierce, but the kids gave me a bottle of what I felt on it for my birthday. I shouldn't have been surprised by the consequences, but they turned out to be unexpected and hit me in the face. I felt the Italian food rising in my throat, ran to the toilet, and lost my dinner. After rinsing my mouth, I sat on the toilet trying to think. Anthony, are you okay? She was outside the door. No, I'm not okay, you traitor. I got sick. I need a few minutes. Good, then I'll sleep in the guest room. I don't want to catch anything. Thank you for the comfort and support. Good. What was I going to do? The next morning, I used the computer in the store and found an amazing number of private detectives. Who would have thought that Colorado is a hotbed of illegal activity? How was I supposed to determine which one was the best? I had no idea. I chose the one whose website seemed to me the most professional. 2 weeks later, I had all the information I needed. She made love to our child's pediatrician. I shouldn't have been surprised. Most likely, she wanted to raise her status. He was divorced, he was about 40 or about 50. Dr. Burroughs had a lot of money, and that was all she cared about. She was a selfish fool, and I've known about it for at least 10 years. Her brother was Jerry Hernandez, a legendary middleweight boxer. He bought us a house when we got married, and we lived on the same block with her other siblings and her mother. Jerry made a bet on me when I quit my job at the firm and became a professional glassblower. He bought all the necessary equipment and owned 10% of my business. When I returned the money to him, he returned his share. I have achieved good results. Working as an artist rather than a commercial drone made me happy, but not my beloved wife. It was too risky financially until I bought her a BMW. She calmed down but still wasn't thrilled that she had to tell her friends that I was an artist who worked in a backyard workshop. Every time I tried to pay off her brother, she complained, "He doesn't need money, he's rich." One day I tried to explain that it wasn't that he needed money. If she understood, which I doubted, she didn't care. Any money we received was ours, and she'd be damned if it would go to someone else. Strangely, this worldview did not apply to other people's money. She was constantly making Jerry pay for her. It took me 6 years to pay off my brother-in-law with money that I had hidden from my wife. He always tried to refuse the payments that I made every few months, because that's the kind of person he is. I kept making payments because that's the kind of person I am. When Jerry was dying and lost his money, he couldn't help her anymore. The house was registered in her name and she immediately put it up for sale. A few weeks later, we moved to Pueblo. The small town where we raised our children was too provincial for her. I think she saw her brother one more time before he died. I took the kids to see him almost every weekend. She told me that I had made her look bad by going without her. So yes, I knew who and what my wife was. Unfortunately, I still loved her. I think I loved her until I walked into the doctor's office. Her car was in the parking lot, so I knew she was there. The children were old enough to cook their own dinner and be unattended for a while. His clinic was located in an office complex along with other white-collar firms. The door to his office was locked, and I almost dislocated my shoulder when I decided I was macho enough to kick it out. Jumping away from the door, I grabbed a fire extinguisher that was nearby and hit the door handle several times with a metal balloon. A minute later, the door opened and I was inside. I could hear Camille moaning from the next room. It seemed like the clowns and Disney characters decorating the walls were mocking me as I approached the adulterous couple. They didn't even know I was there until I wrapped my forearm around his throat and pulled him back. I threw it on a cupboard filled with cotton swabs, tongue spatulas, and other supplies, most of which fell to the floor. He was stunned into silence, staring at me with his mouth open. She wasn't that quiet. Anthony, get out of here, get out! I haven't been in a fight since the 4th grade. I was not a retired Navy SEAL. I didn't even take Jerry's boxing advice. As I punched Dr. Burrows in the stomach with all my might, I felt something turn wrong in my wrist. With my other hand, I pressed his head against the closet. What for? I have no idea. I should have punched him or something. The fool continued to scream. Get out! You're ruining everything, that's it! She started pounding me on the back. Probably her fists were more effective than mine. I hit Burrows in the face with the back of my hand and kicked him in the shin. I'm not much of a fighter. He covered himself as best he could. I think he was a lame fighter too. When I pulled myself together, I began to feel a throbbing in my arm and wrist. I looked around the trashed room. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Spitting on the doctor, I turned to my wife. Don't come home this time. Just stay away from us. I got out and went to the hospital. I called my aunt and asked her to come and stay with the children until I got home. Nothing was broken in my arm or wrist, but it hurt like hell. They put a bandage on me, gave me a prescription for painkillers and anti-inflammatory drugs, and sent me home. They could be seen from the end of the block. I slowed down and then stopped, looking at the 2 police cars parked outside our house. I thought about turning around and going to a hotel for the night, finding a lawyer and giving up, but I was too tired to fight. I just wanted it to be over. For as long as I can remember, her presence has covered our lives with a veil, and it has exhausted me mentally and spiritually. I'll spend the night in jail, post bail, and pick up the kids. We could stay with my aunt until I come up with a long-term plan. Yes, it's not really planned. When I drove up, she started screaming and pointing. Hiding halfway behind the door, she pretended to be scared perfectly. There was a bruise under her left eye, which was likely to be black and blue the next day. A ball of lead settled in my stomach. That fool was setting me up. I turned off the car, keeping my hands in plain sight, and slowly walked out into the driveway. The police behaved professionally. One of them had his hand at his holster, and the other was walking slowly towards me and talking. Mr. Anthony Cato? Yes. I admit I broke into that bastard's office and punched him in the face, but I never touched my wife. I suppose I'm going to be arrested. Looking at my house when I was handcuffed, I saw my aunt taking my eldest son away from the window. My wife was grinning when the officer put his hand on my head to make sure I was safely in the back seat of the car. The only allowed phone call I made was to my cousin Mateo. We grew up together and were more like brothers than cousins. He found me the best lawyer in town and arranged bail. I couldn't get closer than 500 feet, 150 meters, to Dura or my children. I couldn't get in touch with them in any way. Thanks to Mateo's lawyer and Dr. Burrows, who did not want fathers to know that he was making love to the mothers of his patients, I served only 60 days and received a long-term parole. It could have been worse, but the lack of meetings with children was killing me. After my release, I received supervised visits 1 hour a week, and I paid for the supervision myself. Mateo lent me enough money to make the down payment on the house. It was the same house where we raised our children. The building of my old workshop was still there, and I had to take the sheriff with me when I took my tools and equipment from the house where my children still lived. Like a wounded animal, I crawled back to where I felt safe. I was happiest here. I started working again, and Mateo became my biggest client. I do not know what exactly he did for a living, although I had a rough idea. He did the same things we did as children. He found people who had something to sell, found people who needed what was being sold, and brought them together for a percentage of the sale. Did I think that all this was legal? Not at all. Mateo knew how to bring the right people together, and as long as it didn't harm the innocent, he didn't care what to negotiate. He assigned me to work on elite vases and paid exorbitant fees for it. In turn, he sold vases to people he helped, and they paid him a lot of money for the vase. According to the accounting department, the money now came to him from the sale of vases, which were supposed to cost less than $1,000 for tens of thousands of dollars. The divorce went through the entire judicial system, and now this fool insisted on unsupervised dates. I was surprised how long it took her to take this step. Now that she really had to become a mother, she didn't care. If she could sometimes shift the children to me, it gave her the opportunity to go away and do anything and with anyone. I earned $52,000 the previous year. Not bad, but not great either. The cost of living in our area was not too high, so the fool did not have to work. We lived at the lower limit of comfort. Her lawyer used this amount to extort alimony and child support from me. I asked Mateo to withhold my salary, or share, or whatever you want to call it. Taking into account his orders, I expected to earn a little more than $125,000 that year. I would have argued with her about the percentage she was getting from $52,000, but I wouldn't have put up much of a fight. When the divorce was finalized, she sent me a long letter. I didn't open the envelope, but it seemed to me that there should have been at least 5 sheets of paper in it. I knew her, so I guessed what would be written in them. I was a loser. I should have made more money. Overreacted to Dr. Burrow's thorough medical examination. It was all my fault. I took it to my workshop and turned it into ashes with a blowtorch. It's been a few weeks and I still couldn't stop thinking about that DVD. It was like Chinese waterboarding. Always there, always knocking on the door of my consciousness. Cap. Did she tell him about me? Cap. Did he use it better than I did? Cap. Is it really my fault? Cap. Will the DVD tell me why she destroyed our family? Cap. In the end, I plugged it into my laptop and sat down with the 5th part of Jack. The sight of my wife being used by an aging Dr. Burrows didn't destroy me. To be honest, it was a bit boring. What stole my life was her words. She married me because Jerry liked me. Her brother was her food stamp and she wanted him to be happy. That bitch thought she was making a sacrifice for her brother. If she was marrying me to make him happy, she shouldn't have had any trouble making love to me. It was depressing but not heartbreaking. I was shocked when she told the kind doctor that I was not the biological father of any of our 3 children. It's strange, but the first thing that came to my mind was what kind of crazy woman thinks that such conversations in bed will help you find a new husband. The video was detailed enough for me to see him flinch, and a look of disgust flashed across his face. I missed the next visit. Not because I loved them less, but because I got into a bottle and started drinking all day long. A couple of weeks later, Mateo was on my porch. I looked like shit, but so did he. If hygiene had been the deciding factor, he would have definitely won. I stared at his bald head and pale skin for too long, and finally he spoke. Will you invite me in? Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. I opened the door for him and looked for a beer in the fridge. Handing him one bottle, I took one for myself, then thought about it and put mine back. So what are you doing here, Mateo? Nothing special. You haven't answered your phone in over 2 weeks. You didn't call anyone. You missed a date with the kids. My mom, by the way, is very angry about it, and you owe me 4 vases. You smell like a bum, and the house is a mess. But apart from that, everything is fine. I sat down on the sofa, and Mateo brushed some newspapers off the chair before sitting down too. Talk to me, Anthony. What's happening? I took a deep breath, let out the air, and started. Damn it, kids. What about the children? Are they all right? They are not my children. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Who told you that? My ex-wife. This is on a video from a private investigation. She told the doctor. I think this psychopath was bragging. On my cousin's face, anger struggled with sadness. He paused before answering. She's a cheater. She's a pathetic, lying cheat. If it was in the trash can, I would only go over to close the lid. First, we need to do tests to see if she's telling the truth. You raised these kids. You're more of a parent to them than she is. You need to get yourself cleaned up, shave, take a shower, eat something sensible, and we'll go talk to your lawyer. You need to seek full custody. Mateo may not have the most extensive vocabulary, but he was my cousin and best friend. While I was taking a shower, he cleaned up the house. He dragged my Weber grill to the front of the house and had already poured coal into it when I went out on the porch. Hey, you look like a human again. That's what we're going to do. We're going to the Pueblo to see a lawyer, and then we're going to try to see your kids. We need to get into the field of view of the CPS, Custody and Guardianship Service, or those who, damn them, determine the order of custody and visits. Then you'll fly back to Los Angeles with me, and Barbara will be glad to see you. I'll bring you back here for the next official visit. That's what we did. We talked to a lawyer who promised to talk to the right people and mitigate any damage caused by my missing the visit. That bitch let us see the kids because it allowed her to go out and do what she wanted. She stopped me on the way out of the house. Anthony, I need money. Find a job. I have to look after the kids, you idiot. I stopped and counted to 10. Find a part-time job. Be reasonable, it's just money. It's my money, you dirty little fool. My money. You got everything you're owed, you have a house and a car, and now you want more? I know for a fact that Mateo's mom buys things for the kids. You won't get another cent from me. Mateo called from the driveway. Anthony, let's go. He was right. Staying and talking to her was a waste of time. I turned around and left her standing there. It wasn't about her, it was about my children. We took them to the cinema and to dinner. They were happy to see Uncle Mateo, and we all went to my aunt's for dessert. Mateo took 3 pies, 4 gallons of ice cream, and a wad of money for his mom. I was not allowed to visit the children without supervision, but how can I be guilty if I happen to be around when they are visiting their uncle? We were flying to Los Angeles when Mateo came back from the toilet, sat down, and a small bottle of medicine fell out of his pocket. He was covered in sweat, and his hand was shaking when he tried to lift it. I picked him up. Are you okay? Yes, just a little unwell, flu or something like that, nothing special. I read the label. What is Athenator? Nothing. Just take it a couple of times a day and I'll be fine for 72 hours. Seriously, it's okay. Don't tell Barb about it. I don't want her to worry. Good, we'll pump you up with vitamin C. It'll kick his ass. Maybe matzo ball soup. He didn't look well, so I was glad to hear that it was just the flu. This must have been the end of the illness as he did not cough or sneeze. I hoped it wasn't contagious because we had just spent the day with my children. We landed, took our luggage, and headed to the parking lot. There was a feeling that there were more people at Los Angeles Airport than lived in Pueblo. I offered a prayer to the traffic gods while Mateo took us out of the airport in his caddy. Since I visited him and Barbara, I have learned to live in fear of the 405th Road. He kept his eyes on the road as he spoke. Are you hungry? Of course. Barbara is going to order Thai food, so how hungry are you? If you're asking if I can have a Thai meal after visiting In-N-Out, then the answer is absolutely. Ha! You're definitely my cousin. Great, meet. We're on our way. We pulled into his driveway and I stood there for a moment, enjoying the view before unbuckling myself. I liked his house. There was a sense of comfort in it. It was a nice house on a large plot of land. They didn't have children, so they didn't need much space in the house. Everything was done in pastel colors that matched the stucco. They had 2 avocado trees, one in front, the other in the back. For the first few years of visiting them, I almost jumped out of my skin when an avocado fell and landed on the metal roof above their closed porch. It was too perfect to go into the backyard, pick a lemon from one tree and an avocado from another. 20 minutes later, you were already sitting by the pool with the freshest guacamole in the world. Barbara met us at the door. A tall, slender woman, she made their house a home. She was born and raised in California, but she reminded me of a stereotypical Southern beauty. Barb was the epitome of kindness and comfort. After kissing Mateo, she came over and hugged me. She spoke softly in my ear. I'm so sorry, Anthony. You don't deserve any of this. Stepping back and holding my shoulders at arm's length, she pushed her blonde hair back from her face and looked into my eyes. Mateo missed you. Me too. We are happy that you are here. If you ever need it, this is your home. You are always welcome." Lowering her arms, she started to turn around, but then looked back. Looking at me again, she frowned and turned to her husband. "You idiots stayed at the In-N-Out, didn't you?" Mateo laughed. "Don't blame me. He cried about it the whole flight. In the end, I had to give in." Barb laughed too, and we sat and poked around while she enjoyed the patty and satay chicken. After dinner, we talked, and Barb asked about my new once-old house. We talked about her mother-in-law, which led to a conversation about children. Seeing how it hurt me, she tried to switch the conversation to something more mundane, movies, current events, and all that, to keep the conversation going without plunging me into dreary melancholy. I smiled, appreciating her efforts. Mateo was lucky. He hit the marriage jackpot, whereas my marriage was a loser from the very beginning. "It's all right, Barb. It hurts, but there's no point running away from it. Yes, she framed me and I spent time in prison. After that, she took most of our property in the house and began to receive crazy alimony for the amount that I earned. I hate her for it. But the kids, it just destroyed me. To be honest, I do not know what to do. I'm still kind of in a daze. Well, while you and my husband were having fun, I was doing some work. There should be 3 sets of DNA here by 5 o'clock tomorrow. You'll take swabs from the children and we'll find out if she lied or not. I talked to Mateo's lawyer and he recommended a colleague specializing in family law to me. Have you thought about annulling your marriage? You have a video where she admits that everything was a hoax from the very beginning and she immediately started cheating. If the marriage is annulled, she will stop receiving alimony." Stunned, I stared at her. "Can it work? Seriously? It's brilliant." "Yes, I don't want her to get a dime." "We'll go to the lawyer tomorrow afternoon. It looks like you have every chance of getting an annulment." Mateo spoke up. "I have to go to San Diego for work in the morning. Speaking of work, I need those vases, Anthony. We'll put the same equipment in your backyard as in the house. Consider this your workshop away from home." Looking at him, I saw that his left hand was shaking on the table next to the plate. He pulled her up to him and dropped her on his lap. When I looked up, I found him looking at me and shaking his head slightly. I looked at Barb, then at him, and didn't say anything. We talked a little more before going to bed. Barb knocked and entered the guest room while I was unpacking. She put the pillowcases on the pillows without saying anything while I was thinking about Mateo. I looked up as she started to leave. "Thank you, Barbara. It was hard. It's good to have a family." Hugging me again, she spoke in my ear. "I'll say it again. You didn't deserve what she did to you. You're a good man, Anthony." When I woke up, Mateo was gone. Angry at myself for not talking to him before he left, I took a shower and got muesli and soy milk for breakfast. Barb and my cousin completely conformed to California stereotypes. I was hoping we wouldn't have tofu for dinner. He turned out to be right. A duplicate of all my equipment was in a new large shed in the backyard. I was working until about noon when Barbara came and brought lemonade. She was wearing a light blue sundress with a yellow belt. It went well with her corn-colored hair and blue eyes. I was terribly sweaty. Smiling, she handed me the lemonade. "We have to leave in about 45 minutes. "Okay, thanks. I'll finish up here and take another shower." We met with a lawyer who made sure that I understood that he was just providing me with general information and that if I wanted to move on, it had to be a lawyer in Colorado. He asked a lot of questions and I gave him as many answers as I could. He confirmed that my case was looking good, and for the first time in a long time I was happy. Barb tried to pay, but I refused. I had a decent amount of money, which Mateo kept until I needed it. I paid for the consultation and we had lunch before heading home. It was seafood, not tofu. She noticed my improved mood and we sat for almost 2 hours talking about old times, laughing at jokes from our childhood with Mateo. He called and said he had to stay the night. I went out to the pool when Barb hung up and called him. It went to voicemail. I tried again, and voicemail again. I sent a message. "Stop fooling around and call me back, right now," he called back. "I was in the bathroom. Can't the guy take a leak? What's up your ass?" "Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know, I thought you were avoiding me." "What? Mateo, what happened to your hand last night?" "Was she trembling?" "It's not a big deal. Do you remember when I broke my arm?" "There was a little nerve damage, and now that I'm getting older, it haunts me a little bit when I get tired." "Look, I appreciate your concern, cousin, but this is really nothing. Is that all?" "That's it. Stop worrying about me and take care of the vases." Barb and I changed into swimsuits and went to the pool. She laughed when I jumped when the avocado hit the metal sheet. Embarrassed, I smiled at her, a little shy. We enjoyed the white wine and warm water until we began to feel sleepy. Mateo returned the next morning, and I spent the whole day in the workshop working on his vases. He opened an account for me, where he kept most of the money he paid so that this fool couldn't get her hands on it. There was about $17,000 in it, and I asked him to withdraw $5,000 in cash for me. When I wasn't working, the three of us ate, swam, laughed, and talked. The next day was repeated, and the next day I flew on a date with the children. I met them at Dura's house, and we spent time together in my old workshop. I spent a lot of money I received from Mateo on gifts. My children were not spoiled and would have been happy to see me without gifts, but they were children, so they were a little confused. The newest iPhones were a big hit, and my eldest let out something that sounded like "yit." I had no idea what that meant, but I figured it was a good thing. The social worker told me that this would be the last week of supervised visits, and my time increased to 4 hours every Saturday. In 60 days, this time will be reviewed and possibly increased. She always maintained an aura of professionalism, but she was also a sweet woman. I always brought lunch for the kids and a sandwich or something for her. She refused the first few times, but the more she got to know my ex-wife, the more she warmed to me. The social worker watched me closely while I told the children that I had bought us all membership in Ancestry.com, a company that manages a network of genealogical and historical records. They didn't ask questions while I took swabs of their DNA. When I finished, she frowned and stopped me as I approached the workshop door. "Is there anything I should be worried about, Mr. Cato?" "I don't think so. Why would you worry? The kids had a great time, and of course I am too. Did you see something that I didn't?" "Mr. Cato, isn't one DNA test enough? You forced all 3 children to take swabs. You know what children are like. If one of them has such a thing, they all want the same one. I see them once a week. I didn't want jealousy to arise." "Yeah, good. You have my business card. Please call me if you think we need to discuss something." "Necessarily. Have a good week." When I got into the car, a fool ran down the steps from the house. "Anthony, don't leave." She came up to me as I was getting into the car and held the door open. "Listen, I need to get some money. The children need clothes and we have a problem with the boiler. The boiler is under warranty. Call them to come. I'll have the kids for 4 hours next week. I'll take them shopping." "Anthony, honey, can't you just help me? Look, I'm not your husband anymore, and I'm certainly not your friend. Do you need money? Get off your ass and get a job. Do you want someone to give you things? Find another sucker. I have to go. Get your hands off my car." "What about your children, you selfish freak?" I sat there and freaked out. I looked up from the steering wheel and stared at her. "My what? Did you say my children?" Fear showed on her face. I knew her. It wasn't the fear that I would find out, not the fear of being shamed. It was the fear of losing alimony. She let go of the car door. I slammed it shut and got out of the car. Sitting at the airport waiting for my flight back to Los Angeles, I called my neighbor, Jennifer Cruz. "Hi, Jennifer, this is Anthony." "Hello, Wanderer. How are you?" "Okay, thanks. Listen, I'm going to stay in Los Angeles for a while. Can you do me a favor, pick up the mail and look after the house?" "Of course." "Listen, can you make those little glass things that people put in windows and they refract light?" "Yes, I can make them. Why, do you need some?" "No, I heard that the woman from the council, Cumberly, wants to order 100 pieces for Christmas for her main sponsors. I thought you could give them your information and stick your foot in the door." "Jennifer, how do you know all this?" "Oh, you know, I'm keeping my eyes open." "Okay, thanks for the warning and looking after this place. I'll be back next week." Mrs. Cruz had a heart of gold, but she was a gossip girl on steroids. She always knew what was going on in everyone's business. Barb made dinner for me, and Mateo picked me up. On weekends, the traffic jams were not so severe, and we enjoyed the ride. He spoke as he changed lanes. "Hey, I need a favor." "Of course. Name her." "I have to meet with a few people tomorrow night about a deal, but Barbara has a charity event she's supposed to attend. I just found out about the meeting today and I can't refuse it. Can you take her out?" "Yes, of course, I think so. Is it formal?" "Yes, you can take my tuxedo." "A tuxedo? Seriously? It doesn't look like this event is for me." "You can handle it. Just stay with Barb and let her tell you everything." "Okay, of course." That evening we had dinner together, played cards, and went to bed. The next day I returned to work on the vases, finished it at 14 o'clock, took a shower, and shaved. Mateo's tuxedo fit me like it was made especially for me. When I came out of my room, my cousin gave me a wolf whistle. Barbara slapped him on the shoulder. You look very good, Anthony. Are you ready to go? She was stunning. In a form-fitting red dress, her slender curves were highlighted and exposed for all to see. I've seen her in a swimsuit countless times, but it was somehow different. I froze in place for a minute, and Mateo laughed. That's why you're going, Aunt. You can drive away all the lonely guys. Feel free to bring a baton with you. I'm sorry. It was awkward. Barbara, you look amazing. She blushed, kissed her husband, and we left. The journey took 45 minutes. I kept looking back at Barbara and feeling guilty. I hadn't been with a woman in a very long time, and I clearly needed to change that as soon as possible. It was definitely a high-class event, and I was grateful that I didn't wear one of my suits. I noticed the looks that greeted Barbara and me when we entered the room, and then the others at our table when we sat down at the table. Jealousy, pride, and shame waged a fierce battle in my soul, and there was no winner. We introduced ourselves to the people at our table, ordered dinner for ourselves, praying it wasn't the notorious rubber chicken from catering, a business providing catering services at a remote facility, and headed to the dance floor. After Janelle Monáe's song Make Me Feel and 2 slow dances, I had to make some space between us before she felt my ardor. And again, I felt like an ass. We made some silent bids at auctions in support of saving pit bulls, and she took my hand. Anthony, talk to me. She led me to an empty table at the back of the room. We sat down, and she looked around the room for a moment, trying to collect her thoughts. You're his best friend. He loves you like a brother. Say, do you think Mateo is all right? What was I supposed to say? It seemed to me that by saying something, I would break an unspoken trust. She must have noticed my hesitation. I know how close you are, and you might not want to say things that you think he wouldn't want me to know. But if he's hiding something from me, I need to know. Anthony, I found him sleeping by the pool a few weeks ago. He was so sunburned that he had to see a doctor. He slept for over 18 hours that day. When your equipment was delivered, he was talking to the couriers and started slurring his words. He said he was just tired, but I realized it wasn't just that. I'm scared to death. I didn't know what to say. Stunned, I leaned back in my chair. Barb, why would he hide such a thing from us? When we first flew here, he looked very sweaty and pale. I was worried and noticed that his hands were shaking. A bottle of medicine fell out of his pocket. He said he had the flu. A few days ago at dinner, his hand was shaking so much that he put it under the table so you wouldn't see it. Presumably, this is nerve damage after he broke his arm. Did you see the label on the bottle? Do you know what kind of medicine it was or who prescribed it? No, I think it was Abirov. Abitov? Something like that. What should we do? Maybe we should talk to him face to face, Barb answered, fighting back tears. Let me figure this out a little bit first. She took my hand again. Thank you, Anthony. Would you mind if we skip dinner? Can we stop at the In-N-Out on the way home? I was joking with her, but there was a kind of naturalness in the words home that scared me. It wasn't my house. This was their home. My home was in Colorado. She got up, hugged me, and we left. We walked in the door with the In-N-Out bags, and Mateo was lying where we left him, sleeping on the couch. Did he go to the meeting? Barbara came up to him and took his hand in her left. She stroked it with her right hand. Honey? Mateo? Blinking slowly, he looked at both of us and smiled. Are you back so soon? Did you bring me hamburgers and fries? A terrible longing settled in my stomach, and I didn't know why. It was a feeling of horror, and I couldn't believe that I would be able to speak for even a minute. Of course, I'm going to change out of your tuxedo. I don't want to pay for cleaning to get the fat and ketchup out of it. Barb looked puzzled. What? Anthony, this is your tuxedo. Mateo bought it for you last week. Looking from Barb to my cousin, I tried to suppress all the questions that were popping into my head. Oh, okay. Well, let me go change my clothes. He had known for a week that I would need a tuxedo for tonight. It wasn't a last-minute meeting, if there was a meeting at all. After changing our clothes, we enjoyed our meal sitting by the pool. So, Maddie, what happened tonight? They called about half an hour after you left. The meeting was canceled. It sucks. I hope you didn't miss the deal. No, it's all right. Barbara gathered up some wrappers, put them in a bag, and headed to the kitchen. I saw her over Mateo's shoulder as she took his phone from the counter. She did a few scrolls and looked at me, shaking her head. I continued. So they just called and canceled the meeting out of the blue? Does this happen often? Sometimes. I don't really do what people call a stable business. Life went on and Mateo looked tired, but otherwise everything was fine. I finished his vases and started working on the design to introduce him to the woman from the council. I flew out on Friday evening. It was amazing to spend time with the kids, just the four of us. No matter how sweet the woman from social services was, her presence seemed to anchor my emotions. I took them go-karting and treated them to lunch before returning them home. When this fool came out of the house and started walking in my direction, I turned on the reverse gear and drove away from there. Singing on the radio during the 2-hour drive home, I was in a great mood. I needed to attract more clients, and Jennifer's offer could help me a lot. I needed to get the results of the DNA tests, but it was supposed to happen on Monday. I needed to find out what could be done about the annulment, and on Monday morning I had an appointment with the same lawyer who handled my divorce. I desperately needed to make love before I embarrassed myself in front of Barbara again. I spent Sunday working on samples for the Women's Council and making some additional items for Jennifer as a thank you. Early in the evening, she came to me with the mail, and we sat on the porch and chatted. She spoke softly but sternly as the 2 children approached with the cart. Be gentle. The eldest child was a teenager, and the youngest was a girl of about 10 years old. The boy was black and the girl was Asian. There was a constant smile on the boy's face. Hello, I'm Ted. We live in this block. Do you want to buy vegetables? We grew them ourselves with my dad and my sister. She didn't do too much. She's still very young. Oh, it's Wendy. I looked at Jennifer, who raised her eyebrows as if to say, don't screw up. Of course, Ted. What do you have? We have cucumbers, tomatoes, basil, and peaches. But listen, if you buy for $5, you'll get free recipes for everything you buy. It was a good weekend. Jennifer knew these kids, and they seemed sincere. Good, give me $10. Jennifer, do you need vegetables or peaches? Well, Anthony, I think I'll take $10 too. Ted picked out a bunch of vegetables and packed them into cardboard boxes while Wendy used her phone to show me how to log into the app, which she seemed very proud of. It contained recipes, photos, and coupons for local grocery stores. We paid them, and they left satisfied. I gave Jennifer half of my purchase and made a salad for dinner. The morning meeting with the lawyer went well, and she agreed with the other lawyer's opinion that we have an excellent chance of annulment. The DNA test results came back, as promised by UPS, and confirmed that I am the father of all 3 of my children. I had no idea what this deranged fool was talking about. Had she slept with so many guys on the side that she thought there was no way I could be their father? I was thrilled. It was the best day in recent years. So far, this has not turned out to be the case. In the evening, Barbara called me. Anthony, you have to come home. I could hear the tears in her voice. Oh my God, Anthony, he has a brain tumor. It would take a little less than 2 hours to get to the Pueblo. They had a direct flight leaving in 3 hours. I was on it. I didn't pack. I don't even think I locked the door. I was numb and couldn't think of anything. Thoughts flashed through my head about our childhood, about how he helped me after I found out about the fool. Did his mother know him? I almost called to ask her to look after the children. I could have accidentally told my aunt that her son might be dying. After going to the toilet on the plane, I sat on the toilet and sobbed. I pulled myself together when someone knocked on the door. Splashing water on my face, I gathered my strength and returned to my seat. Feeling like an idiot, I stopped looking for Mateo at the baggage claim. Hertz was kind enough to take my money and I rented a small car. 90 minutes after leaving the airport, I was at their house. Why did I think of this house as their house now? What has changed with home? Sitting in the car in their driveway, I wondered if I had the strength to do it. To hell with my cousin, he was my brother. No child of my parents could be closer than Mateo. I got out of the car and went to the door. Barbara looked both terrible and beautiful when she answered my knock. She pulled me to her and hugged me, crying on my chest. Mateo was sitting on the couch. Hey, I'm still alive, friends. Would you stop crying for a while? I must have burst into tears because I sat down in an armchair and just watched him for a while. Eventually, he turned to me, outraged. Would you stop? You're pissing me off. I continued to watch him. How long have you known? A long time ago. A long time ago. I closed my eyes for a second. Did you know before I found out about the fool? Yes, I'm not going to apologize for that. Mateo, why didn't you say anything? You were there for me when I needed you. and you took away my opportunity to be with you. If things go badly, I'll have to live with it. Okay, I understand what you're getting at, but the difference is that I could have done something for you. No one can do anything for me. I was wrong. I didn't scream. It felt like a giant had kicked me in the stomach. With difficulty restraining myself, I asked a question that I didn't want to get an answer to. How much longer? Probably less than 90 days. 90 days. I had less than 3 months left with the man I was ready to take a bullet for. What can I do? Do you want me to talk to your mom? He smiled sadly. No. Barb and I are flying with you next week to visit her. We'll talk to her when you're with the kids. By the way, did you find out anything about the children? Despite the pain, I smiled. Yes, they are mine. All. This is amazing, Aunt. Truth. Fantasy. We would love them all equally, but really, it's just wonderful. Maddie, let me do something. What can I do? It's very selfish, but what the fuck, right? I might as well move all my chips to the center. If you could spend as much time with us as possible, apart from time with the kids, it would mean a lot. I'm a little scared, Aunt, and it's always been just the two of us against the world, you know? It seemed like I was far from screaming. I'm not going anywhere. Maybe I'll offer this fool money to take the kids to the airport so they can visit their aunt and uncle for a couple of weekends. His tumor was inoperable. We've spent the last few months trying to make him as happy and comfortable as possible. He showed me where his money was so that I could give it to Barbara when he was gone. Not figuratively, giving me access to hidden accounts. He literally showed me his money. He buried ingot after ingot of gold in his property outside Ontario in the desert. My ex-wife called a few weeks after I found out about Mateo's tumor. It was a strange conversation, and I felt like I was talking to a man in a capsule. Anthony, please don't hang up on me. I'm not asking for money. I just need information. At least she used a new approach. Okay, what do you want to know? I need to learn about skateboarding. I need to be closer to our children, and that's all Jimmy talks about. I didn't know what to say. Was she trying to prank me? Why do you care? Look, I'm trying, okay? I try. I know the kids have always preferred you, but I thought I was at least out there in their hearts. Dad was always number one, but I thought I was at least a strong number two. Please, no obscene jokes. I was wrong. They don't know me, they don't love me, and they don't even care that they don't love me. I'm not blaming them or you. It's not easy, you know? I know I wasn't what I could have been, but I want to be a better person. Can you help me? Anthony, are you still here? Yes, I'm sorry, I was just confused for a second. Listen, let me think about it and call you back tomorrow. Okay. Anthony, thank you. Good. I'm glad you called, Camille. It was just weird. I've gathered basic information about what our kids like, including links to YouTube, local skateboard, camping, and comic book stores, as well as Amazon links to tutorials on each activity. The next day, we had a polite conversation and I sent her the information by email. 2 weeks later, Aunt Sylvie moved in with us. I insisted that she take the guest room and I put the futon in the workshop in the backyard. I worked half the day. Jennifer still looked after the house for me and mailed packages for Mateo. She knew us when we were boys, and she went to school. She remembered his love for chili verde, tomato green chili, and sent several parcels weekly. They came in triple-sealed Tupperware packaging, with same-day delivery. I don't know how much it cost her, but when Mateo hardly ate any other food, he ate every ounce of what she sent. Back in Pueblo, I talked to my lawyer. It turned out that, having been married for almost 2 decades and being the father of her 3 children, it was practically impossible to annul the marriage. If I hadn't been a father, it would have been a completely different story. It suited me fine. Paying her alimony for 3 years was worth it for the children to be mine. The kids and I were about to leave for Los Angeles when Camille stopped me at the door. Kids, wait in the car. Your dad's coming out now. Whether they liked her or not, they obeyed. She turned to me, silently staring at the floor. Camille, I have to go. She raised her hand to touch me, stopped, and lowered it again. You know better than anyone that I'm not the best cook, but wait a second. She took a large box and handed it to me. Do you remember when we were kids and there were 7 or 8 of us? Did we go to Sweeney's, throw money away, and buy a couple of peanut butter pies and a Coke? Mateo loved them. Mine's probably really bad, but give it to him anyway. Tell him I tried, okay? I forgot about it. I forgot about a lot of things about Camille. I think I needed it to survive. She was right. He loved them. I'm sure he'll be thrilled. That's nice of you. Anthony, I'm sorry for everything. Good. I appreciate your words. Have a nice flight. What the hell just happened? Who is this man? Mateo enjoyed talking to the children and even ate some pie. The taste was not bad. He found it hard to believe that there was no ulterior motive in her behavior, but he wasn't going to look into the mouth of a gift pie. After asking the children a little, he was convinced that she was really trying. There was a thaw in their emotions towards her, which I suppose was a positive thing. He asked me to accompany Barb to another charity event. It was a circus for terminally ill children. Barbara was on the board of directors, and he insisted that she go. Aunt, she needs to get out. Try to make her smile. Just a few hours. I didn't have to wear a tuxedo this time. We really had fun and even had time to laugh. I felt guilty every time this happened, thinking about Mateo at home and the poor kids around us. The event was held in an animal sanctuary, and there were a lot of people. Everyone seemed to know and love Barbara, including most single men. She talked to everyone who talked to her, including most single men. It was more annoying than it should have been. Mateo began to feel the need for home renovation equipment. I don't know what repairs he was thinking about, spending most of his time in bed, but he sent Barbara to get what he needed and asked me to go and help carry it. We were walking down the aisle at the Lowe's store when she asked without turning to me, "Does he think he's playing thin?" I laughed. I really hope not. How much do you want to bet on him saying that we bought the wrong thing and we should go to the Home Depot? Maybe he'll insist that we have lunch while we're gone. She laughed in response. We found the right things and went to the exit. We were on our way home when she addressed the elephant in the room. "Anthony, you know I care about you, don't you? But this..." I know. He's a good man. Mateo is trying to do everything right to the last. Let's make him happy and keep doing his little missions, and when it's over, I'm going back to Colorado. She paused for a moment before responding with a soft, sad two-syllable reply. Oh, okay. He died 3 weeks later. I stayed for a week trying to help Barbara. If I hadn't done that, I would have lost myself in grief. Aunt Sylvie stayed for another week, after which she went home. We all promised to meet regularly, but nothing came of it. 6 months after his death, I received a package in the mail. It included an itinerary with a ticket for a 2-week cruise and a DVD. I assumed that the video had information about the cruise ship and possibly details about the various ports where it would stop. It could hardly be worse than the one I got last time. The DVD was inserted into the laptop, and my cousin, my brother, appeared on the screen looking frail and lying in his bed. "Hi, Anthony. Mom is helping me do this. Mom, say hi." The angle changed, and Aunt Sylvie waved at the camera. Turning back again, she focused on her son. "I'll tell you 2 things with confidence, and then I'll ask you for a favor. First, you're an idiot. The second is that Barbara loves you. She has always loved you, but only as a brother. Everything has changed in the last few months. I know her better than anyone else. She's in love with you. I know you better than anyone. You love her. Listen to me carefully, Anthony. I want this to happen. I can't be clearer. I know that you will feel that this is some kind of betrayal if you are together. I'll repeat myself. That's what I want. I love you both and Mom more than anyone else on this planet. Please do this for me. If you doubt my sincerity, call your mom. Talk to her. Anthony, if you love me, if you respect me, go on this cruise. She needs you and you need her. I love you, man. We'll see each other again someday. It was a lovely room with a large balcony, which must have cost him a fortune. I was alone, but it was okay. I couldn't expect her to feel the same way I did. She was rich, beautiful, and sophisticated. I was comfortable looking good and being a redneck. Everything was fine. It really was like that. I was going to enjoy the cruise and toast Mateo at every port along the way. For the first dinner on board, I wore the tuxedo he bought me. It was a little disappointing. Judging by the films I've seen, I expected everyone to be dressed to the highest standard. I sat down and introduced myself to the others at the table. We were chatting when men and several women looked over my shoulder, staring past me. Isn't this where I'm supposed to be? I turned around and stood up. She was wearing that red dress from the charity auction. She was the most beautiful woman here, or maybe anywhere. Smiling, I pushed back her chair. I swallowed hard before answering. Yes, I think so.